time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. On a Wednesday night from the capital city, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, your hosts with the mosts once again here on Sports Talk. Your final word in sports every night in the great state of South Carolina. As you're driving home, be careful. Stay tuned to us throughout the evening. We'll talk more about the ACC championship game, Clemson and Pittsburgh, South Carolina-Akron game coming up. How many of you will show up for that? Gamecock fans, 30,000, 40,000? Will they get 50? I would say if they can get 50, it's a good day. Anything over 50, I think they should be saluted. Anything in the 30s, I would frown upon.
Again, bowl people are watching. This could, I mean, I'm not saying this necessarily could make or break a bowl selection, but they keep an eye on things like attendance. So you never know.
That's always been South Carolina's big sell. We've got the best fans in the country. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to step up and prove it even when you don't really want to. You got to step up and get behind the
temperature going to be?
Supposed to be good weather.
Not bad. A little bit of rain, I think, coming in. Right, Brian?
Yeah.
I heard your forecast today. Didn't you predict rain? We have a meteorologist here in Brian Leonard.
Rogue meteorologist.
Yes. So he was talking about that on the weather forecast. We'll see. We'll see. What else we got for you tonight? M&M boys will be here, and we will have a visit from Wofford coach Josh Conklin. They're getting ready for a tough matchup against Kennesaw State in round 2 of the FCS playoffs on the road. Furman basketball coach Bob Ritchie returns to Sports Talk. The much-talked-about Paladins off to a 7-0 start.
They're the darlings right now.
Yes, indeed. Of course, you know what? The Citadel.
Very good.
Blew out High Point last night, had Tubby Smith shaking his head. And so congratulations to those guys. We've got some basketball teams in the state, Wofford, off to some very good starts. And then we have others who are just sort of piddling out there.
Well, the matchup right now you want to see is Wofford and the Citadel.
I ain't touching that one.
Because Wofford plays a style that really is predicated on tempo, whereas Citadel wants utter chaos. And that would be the matchup.
I say if Wofford is up tempo, Citadel is breakneck.
23 threes last night by the Bulldogs.
Crazy.
Breaking news out of Jacksonville on the bowl, the Gator Bowl. Of course, South Carolina very much in the conversation for the Gator. I would say it's either going to be Gator or Belk for the Gamecocks at this point. What do you know?
Rick Catlett joined Jacksonville radio station 1010XL, as he is wont to do. They have a very good relationship with that Gator Bowl scenario down there with that station in Jacksonville. So he comes on and speaks from time to time. And as, of course, they get closer and closer to the selections, which are starting to kind of happen this week, he believes that they are zeroed in, at least on the SEC side, with either Texas A&M or South Carolina. He projects that the Citrus Bowl is going to take Kentucky. The Outback will take Mississippi State. Of course, the Gator Bowl is in that group of 6 bowls, if you will, that have SEC ties. And right now it looks like possibly it'll be either South Carolina or A&M, at least according to him. And he believes that if the Music City goes Big Ten, they could possibly have a Miami face whoever is on the other side, whether it be A&M or South Carolina. If the Music City does go ACC, as is their decision, they basically have the right of first refusal there, then they would possibly go with Michigan State on the Big Ten side. So I know that there's a lot of intrigue when it comes to the Gator Bowl. The Gator Bowl folks were at a lot of South Carolina games. We noticed them this season, and again, in talking to them, and even comments we've heard from Ray Tanner, not just personally, but things he said other places. The Gator Bowl will be high on South Carolina's list. It'd be the first time they'd play in that Jacksonville-based bowl since 1987.
Keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Rick Catlett is a USC grad, I think, and has always had, of course, his eyes on South Carolina and strong interest. The Gamecocks have a lot of history with the Gator Bowl, so that would not be a surprise, and I think it would be a bowl destination. Again, it's Florida. It's the end of the year. It's a traditional bowl, and I think Gamecock fans would certainly sign off on that. If you're Will Muschamp, you can point to back-to-back Florida bowl trips. Then, of course, the key thing is to go out there and win the game and get that 8th win, assuming everything goes well on Saturday.
Florida State, sorry.
Oh, he's Florida State.
Yes.
Well, who am I confusing him with? There's another bowl guy out there who's got strong South Carolina ties.
No idea.
Well, regardless of that, South Carolina does have a very strong history with the Gator Bowl. And then, of course, there's the Belk Bowl as a possibility as well for South Carolina should the SEC decide to go with Texas A&M in that game. So I had Mississippi State in the Gator in my own personal bowl selections. So right now, by what I've been following, I've got Alabama in the playoff. I've got the Georgia in the sugar because I'm assuming Alabama's going to beat Georgia. Mm-hmm. I've got Kentucky in the peach and Florida in the citrus, but that might be reversed because the peach has the pick ahead of the citrus, or they're part of the college football playoff.
The New Year's 6.
Exactly. So they may put Florida over Kentucky, even though Kentucky beat Florida this year. Wouldn't you think? If you same records, all right, head to head,
right?
Kentucky fans are rabid; they'll follow.
But here's the other part of this too. While they would get a nice draw from Florida, the one thing is it's right there in their backyard. They want to be able to sell hotels. They want to be able to sell, stuff to their Chamber of Commerce. That's one of the reasons why.
You're talking about the peach?
You're talking about citrus, you were saying.
No, I'm talking peach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking peach right now, yeah. But citrus, I think it's going to be either or Kentucky, Florida, peach and citrus, would you say?
I would say that's probably correct.
Now, where's Mississippi State going to land? In Missouri.
According to Mr. Catlett, he believes that Mississippi State is ticketed for the Outback Bowl.
Okay. And LSU is going to go where?
That's a good question.
New Year's 6? Are they going to go up that high? Because weren't they in the top 10 of the playoff
They were
rankings?
in the top 10, so they could be in the New Year's 6. You could be looking at a situation where you have 4 SEC teams among the New Year's 6.
And then it comes back to the argument, and we got to discuss this tonight with Clemson fans. Let's just say the worst thing happens. Why is it that Alabama gets the benefit of the doubt from everybody? Everybody assumes that if Alabama loses to Georgia, they're still going to the playoff.
Right.
Fine and dandy. Why does Clemson, which has been equally as dominating in its own world this year, as dominating as Alabama has been in its world, why does Clemson not get that benefit of the talking heads?
The league.
But Clemson is, I hate to put it this way, a league above. They're in a league, they're in their own league.
That's going to be held against.
That's what's going to be the thing. I'm not saying it's fair. Far be it for me to sit here and say any of this is fair. And I know this goes into something I want to talk about later on in the show, but since you brought it up, something you said last night that the person who used to sit in this seat said apparently about the fact that this is not going to have any controversy, that the playoff was invented to curb controversy.
Now, I want to be careful here to say that I'm not quoting K-Mac exactly because I don't want to see him on Twitter taking me to task for misquoting him. But, Pro, you were a witness to many of those arguments. And if I'm not mistaken, his part of his argument was this is going to fix everything and there's not going to be any controversies. We're going to get the top 4 teams with no bitterness and no fraction when it comes to filling the field out.
So I interviewed Bill Hancock right at the advent of this deal when I was working back in Houston. And I asked him, I said, there are a lot of people who are saying this is going to get rid of the controversy. And he said, oh, no. College football thrives on controversy. This is only going to make the controversy grow and widen. We don't want to get rid of the controversy. All this does is add a subjective face to the BCS formula, which was, of course, of years past, which basically relied on human polls and computer analytics. This puts subjective face on all of these selections, and, of course, it adds the playoff element. So if you thought that the college football playoff was going to eliminate controversy, you were sorely mistaken.
Also, there were people who said when they started the championship game that the SEC would never get in another championship game. Then they suddenly went on the run and they said, the BCS doesn't work. Ergo, what they were saying was, we need to keep these SEC teams out of this thing. How can we fix a system where they can't always be winning the title? And then suddenly Alabama came up and say, well, I'd be damned. They're still doing it.
A couple of other things. Players of the year in the ACC. We'll talk about that. Clemson dominates there. And Buddy Pugh met with the media today. He's had his meeting with the administration and looks like he's going to get another year with the Bulldogs. Talk about that after the break.
By the way, LSU could go out to the team with 2 at-large teams, and that's the Fiesta.
And an ACC departure could draw eyes of a Clemson assistant as well.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We spent the earlier part of the week talking about the rumors involving Brent Venables to possibly go to Texas Tech. I think a lot of that chatter has, at least for the moment, died down. Not necessarily saying that it still can't possibly happen, but he kind of snuffed out that fire, not only with talk about the upcoming task of the ACC championship, but also the desire to have his son, continue on his studies at Clemson. He's got another one on the way as well, and the family really likes it there. And $2.5 million to be a defensive coordinator and not have to be, the baby kisser, if you will, in the face of a program, that's nothing to sneeze at. But now, a potential situation developing in Atlanta after the departure of Paul Johnson. He leaves after 11 years there, an ACC title, 3 appearances in the ACC championship game. However, Corn, when you look at some of the likely candidates, another Clemson assistant possibly emerging as a potential candidate.
Yeah, Tony Elliott's name is coming up almost everywhere. Jeff Scott's name pops up as well. Some are mentioning him with Charlotte, which has filled its job with Mike Houston, the former Citadel head coach, who did a great job there, did a great job at James Madison, did a great job at Lenoir Rhine. I mean, that guy's just been a winner every step of the way. So now he steps into the FBS ranks at Charlotte, see if he can lift that program up. But, you got to be careful now, whoever you are, especially if you're a spread offense coach and you step into Georgia Tech. It's going to take you some time to redo that offense because they have been recruiting for the better part of 15 years for the wishbone or the triple option there with no passing game to speak of whatsoever. Any pass that was completed at Georgia Tech over Paul Johnson's years
was a deep ball.
Yeah, and was also pretty much an accident. Which is amazing considering the receivers he sent to the league. So whoever takes that job, if you're not a triple option coach, it's going to be a complete rebuild on the offensive side.
I know that a lot of these guys who get into this gig want to be head coaches. That's the ultimate goal. And I'm not going to pretend to understand the goals of these coaches to try to get inside their minds. But just from where I sit and my standpoint, I don't think that any of these jobs that any of the Clemson assistants have been rumored to be connected with are as attractive as what they're doing currently. I mean, I'm sorry. You can't sell me on why Brent Venables, despite the fact that he has a connection with the AD there from their time at Kansas State, why he would want to go and recruit in Lubbock, Texas. You can't sit here and tell me. I know that the Atlanta area is a fertile recruiting ground for somebody to walk into, but we've talked about how hard it is to recruit at Georgia Tech because of the academic standards. Couple that with the fact that you're going to have to do a personnel overhaul that might take 3 to 5 years if you're Tony Elliott.
Whoever's going to be the coach, they will negotiate with some academic people saying, Mr. President, if you want me here, this is what you're going to have to do with the standards when we try to bring football players in here. Another guy, I really do believe that Georgia Tech is going to try to win the press conference, which whatever that means. But if I'm Will Muschamp, I'm worried about Brian McClendon. I mean, the guy graduated from Georgia. I'm serious. His wife is from Georgia. He grew up in Atlanta.
Would he want to cross the battle line there?
Yes. He would do that.
Georgia Tech's an attractive job, in my opinion. First of all, you got the city of Atlanta. It's different. It's different than a lot of places, but you've got an on-campus facility in the city. The campus sits in the city, and the stadium sits right on the campus. It's a beautiful setting for college football. You got a lot of wealthy alum. You got a smaller alumni base because it's a smaller school.
Right.
And a lot of the people who go there could care less about football. You've got a large foreign student body population that could care less about the football program, but you do have another section of supporters, older, who are rabid Georgia Tech fans. And I could see where a coach should go in with the right offense and the right stability in the administration and get it done.
I just don't know if you get enough time.
You have to. I mean, whoever takes that job is going to have a lock solid, ironclad 6-year contract.
I would say a 7.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have whoever.
Something.
you're going to have to understand it's going to be a rebuild, especially on the offensive side.
That's why I don't know if it's the best job for Elliott to take, because I think, and this is part of the reason why Ken Wisenhunt is being looked at as possibly a name. Not only does he have connections to the school, but he's been a head coach, not necessarily at the college level, but he's been a head coach before. And I think you're going to need to, if you are going into that job, you will need to have had experience, in my mind, trying to build a program, because if you're trying to do it as a first-timer at that job, it's incredibly difficult, especially with the amount of roster turnover that
That's why you have to hire.
But
Yoda.
You know what? You know what you
Yoda.
look at, even though you play them every year, you're in the division opposite Clemson.
Yes.
And you look at the Coastal, and the Coastal's a mess right now. I mean, it's totally open for anybody who can step in and get it going. You've got a chance to win a division championship pretty quickly.
Similar discussion, but different schools. Of course, the Jeff Brom thing is making news nationally, and I'm wondering if kind of the same situation could be going on in his mind, because he has the tug of home with Louisville, but you have to you have the, not with Georgia Tech, but you have the potential of having to play Clemson every year, and you're in the weaker of the two Big Ten divisions. How do you balance that particular decision, especially when you're just starting to build a program there with the Boilermakers?
And it also depends on the money. What are they offering? What is Louisville willing to spend? And will it, listen, Louisville's not shy about spending money.
I think
on its coaches.
Both of those schools, I think, could pony up the equal amount of money, especially because Louisville right now is a situation where they're having to pay Rick Pitino and the basketball coach that they have there now, and Petrino's buyout. They're not exactly, they're not exactly flowing right now.
All right, our phone number, 800-956-7266. We'll open up the phone lines, hear from you. Those of you who've not been able to get through the first 2 days of the week, I know a lot of you have tried and not been able to get through. We will take your calls. You still want to talk about South Carolina Clemson, that's fine. You haven't had a chance to get your voice out around the state. We'll take your call on that, and also look ahead to Clemson and Pitt and South Carolina and Akron coming up this weekend. To go back to a couple of the other stories of the day, the ACC Players of the Year announced today. Clemson running back Travis Etienne, both the Offensive Player of the Year and the Overall Player of the Year. Cleveland Ferrell, the Defensive Player of the Year. So the Tigers sweep all your major individual awards, including the Coach of the Year, the Jacobs Blocking Trophy, and the Rookie Freshman of the Year.
First time since 2001, back when Maryland was in the conference, that a team from the ACC swept the Offensive, the Overall, and the Defensive Player of the Year, as well as Coach of the Year. And somebody asked me this morning. I was like, people are saying, oh, Dino Babers, people in Syracuse are mad that Babers didn't get the Coach of the Year award. I'm sorry. So much of these Coach of the Year awards have been named for people who did more with less and stuff like that. How about a guy who won the league and won the league in a dominant fashion with no one really coming close? I think that's why Sweeney deserves that award.
You look at the voting for Player of the Year. Etienne got 22 votes. Christian Wilkins was second with 14. Trevor Lawrence got 3. That's 39 votes among 3 Clemson players. As far as the Defensive Player of the Year voting, Farrell got 28 votes and Wilkins got 20. So a lot of people look at Cleveland Farrell. I mean, Christian Wilkins is the face of the team and the defense in particular, but Farrell had 15.5 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks. He leads the ACC in sacks, and he's among the tops in tackles for loss and 41 tackles overall.
Wilkins makes his impact outside of numbers. Farrell, though, has the numbers and the metrics to bear those things out.
This is why Dabo won that award, because I would have been torn between Babers and Dabo, but somebody looked at his record and said, he made a gutsy call with that quarterback change, and that's what got him the trophy.
Over in Orangeburg, Buddy Pugh met with the media today to wrap up his season. He does want to return for another year. Now, the T&D reported today, citing sources, it was in the morning paper before this press conference, that he would be back for the 2019 season, according to their sources, and they cited multiple sources close to the program. He did not go as far as to say that. He did say that he's still working with the administration, and he does want to come back for another year.
Pat Forty just reported Jeff Brom is going to stay at Purdue.
Okay.
So there you go. Just happened.
And if I'm coming back next year, how about more years than just one?
That would help recruiting.
So
if he wants that.
How about Jeff Brom being gutsy and saying no to home? That's pretty big.
We'll be right back. Phone lines are open.
800-956-7266. Remember, tomorrow, programming note, we will be in the Low Country, North Charleston, Goose Creek area, just right off the Charleston Southern campus at the Comeback Shack. We'll be visiting with our friend Chuck Reedy down there. It's his new baby there, the Comeback Shack. Looking forward to being down there. We'll actually be in the vicinity of the big football game, the rescheduled game between the Citadel and Charleston Southern, the intra-city rivalry renewal, if you will.
Yeah.
Even though the game is at Johnson Haygood.
Looking forward to that, and may have a couple of special guests. Chuck will be with us for as long as we need him, and may have a couple of guests from right there in the area. We're still efforting on that. We do invite you to come out and see us at the Comeback Shack. Enjoy the great food, and we've got some more Clemson footballs to give away, do we not?
I believe so.
I saw 4 boxes back there.
There are 4 boxes.
I think they're Clemson footballs. We should better open them up and see.
I think what I think they might be. I think those are the Hall of Fame footballs, the Brian Dawkins Hall of Fame footballs. I think they're more Philadelphia Eagles than they are Clemson, but he is of course, Clemson legend.
I'm going to open one up here during the break and see what's in there.
I can't speak to the content, but I know it is of value to somebody.
All right, in recruiting coming up, we're going to talk about the athlete wide receiver from Mullins, Xavier Leggett, who was at USC today for a visit, and tell you what he's thinking after that visit today, and also a offensive line target for USC who's going to be making an official visit this weekend, and update some other recruiting notes for you as well. 800-956-7266 is our phone number, so you can take Jeff Brom off the list for Louisville. The Louisville job search continues.
Good luck with that, by the way.
We now go to Billy in Somerville. Billy, welcome to Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight, Phil?
Hey, we're doing fine.
I've got a question about the Georgia Tech situation. I'll make a comment, too, with that. As far as what you were saying earlier, would it be in Atlanta? And we've seen Georgia Tech a couple times in the past. They have shown that they can have a winning program up there. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they did play or tie for a national championship 1 year back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's called shared, and they shared a national championship with
Colorado. What year was that?
90.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Atlanta and Georgia right there in Clemson, when you got the top players nationally recruit and they realize that they might not start in a year or two at either school, why not take a chance and go to a school where if you're an all-star freshman coming in, have a chance of playing right away and turn that program around? And with all those players in Atlanta alone, I think that would be a perfect opportunity for a coach to get that job and take advantage of the recruit when they could, where at other times they might not be able to, especially if you've got these kids that are wanting to play in ACC. And to me, I think that should be a perfect situation. And a question I got to ask you too is, and I know I don't want to bring this up, but say, for instance, some reason they decide to go out their name, do you think Will Muschamp's name would ever come up in that conversation, or do you think that's just too soon for them to think about somebody like that?
For Georgia Tech?
Yeah.
No.
Just because, no.
Will Muschamp is not going anywhere anytime soon because of two things. Number one,
SEC.
Well, no. What I was going to say is his loyalty to South Carolina.
Yes.
I think there's a very strong loyalty there from him to them. And I really think now they're going to have a new president at USC next year, and we'll wait and see what happens there. But I do know from Pastides through Tanner on down, there seems to be, of course,
they love him.
Very strong fondness towards him and what he is doing and the way he approaches his job. So there's that. Number two, he's very well paid. And, he's got young children in school, one who's developing as a quarterback. And, you don't want to move those guys around. And number three, I think if he does what he plans to do at South Carolina, he will continue to be very well compensated and will have no reason to go anywhere else.
To Billy's point again, and this is only something that we can say just because we've had coaches who coach there tell us, think of Georgia Tech, and again, it's hard for us to picture it like that. Georgia Tech is like the Stanford of the East Coast. Like the academic standards to get into Georgia Tech, all three of our SAT scores put together couldn't get in there.
You can take up the road, Vandy. Yeah, you can take up the road. Now, here's the key, though. The fourth reason Muschamp's not going anywhere is because that house he has on that island on Murray.
Yeah.
And Murray,
Lake Murray.
Georgia Tech is going to become competitive. And I hear what you're saying about the academics. And I'm sure that they do make some allowances for some marginal students, marginal by their standards.
Management major.
So you find a place and you have to have some presidential admits if you want to be competitive. It just depends on what the administration wants to do. My guess is the administration at Georgia Tech wants to be competitive in football because they are one of the old, long-time traditional programs. They have a great history, and they're going to have to get into what century are we in?
21st.
They're going to have to get into the 21st century with their offense now. I mean, look, what Paul Johnson did when he was at Navy and coming up through Georgia Southern and all that, and what he did at Georgia Tech all those years was great, but it just doesn't attract the athletes that you have to compete on the high level of college football today. With the 7-on-7 game is what is driving offensive football.
Doesn't turn your fan base on either. It does not turn your fan base on.
Do you, in that vein, just because of knowing where the personnel is, do you tap into that well again with either the two service academy coaches, Neo Matalolo or Munkin?
No.
I think you just
wipe it clean. Hard reset.
I think you have to wipe it clean. Your fan base needs some enthusiasm. They need a shot of adrenaline. I would go find me a hot shot, offensive-minded head coach, a young guy, and I would find somebody maybe at a group of 6 school and find somebody who does a great job running the offense, or a top-flight offensive coordinator from one of the Power 5 programs.
You know who you're talking about?
Tony Elliott, a Jeff Scott, or even head out towards
you're talking about the coach at you're talking about Hyper UCF. You're talking about.
But is that a promotion for him to go from UCF? I'm just talking about in terms of the program. I don't know what they pay. UCF would be a hard program to walk away from unless you feel like you're never going to crack the playoff because of where you're located.
One of the hot coaching names now off the board because he says he's staying at Houston. Kendall Briles says he's committed to Cougar football, will continue as the Cougars associate head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach. Of course, he is the son of Art. Wondering if there's still also the sting of the sins of his father, at least on that particular situation.
All right, 800-956-7266. Let's hit the phones once again. David and Andrews, welcome into Sports Talk. David, how are you?
Hey, Corn, how you doing, man?
Good. How's everything with you?
Good. I got a 2-part kind of question or whatever you want to call it. First of all, the comeback shack tomorrow in North Charleston, your time's on it, and number 2, I remember a preseason poll talking about Clemson. You know, if they lost, would they make the 4? And for the most part, you know, all the experts, so-called experts, said that they didn't think they would. So just elaborate on those 2 questions, please.
All right, thank you. We'll be there for the entire show, 6 to 8. The comeback shack, for those of you who don't know, is on Highway 52. That's the highway that runs in front of Charleston Southern.
Basically a catty corner from Charleston Southern, basically.
Yeah, it's about a mile from the campus on the right-hand side. It's a beautiful building, great food, owned, not operated, by our friend Chuck Reedy. And this is our payment to Chuck for his contribution to the program.
So you're saying his hands are not in the beef is what you're telling me?
No, or the chicken.
Yeah.
And hopefully I got to get with Coach Tannehill. Maybe next Thursday we'll be over at group therapy. Get some real help.
Lord knows we need some of it.
But to answer your other question, I differ. I think Clemson should have some leeway here. They're not going to lose to Pitt, but I think they should be in the discussion that if they lose to Pitt, they should still be in the playoff. If you want to, you can't tell me just simply losing to Pitt means you're not one of the top 4 teams in the country based on your entire body of work. I mean, upsets do happen. You're going to tell me that's an and don't give me the timing aspect. A loss is a loss. That's an uglier loss in Ohio State losing to Purdue the way they did. I mean,
Ohio State's not going to be in the discussion either.
No, if they win, they're going to be in the discussion.
They probably go to Oklahoma instead.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they love that offense, because their defense is matador.
And they love Lincoln Riley.
All right, 800-956-7266.
You think they're going to give any favors to Urban Meyer if they can help it? He's scorched earth still.
He's still breathing. Everybody's had him fired or dead or something. He's still kicking. Just ask Michigan.
Is he closer to fired or no?
Stop.
All right, back in a moment.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
So this is interesting. It's funny. I actually alluded to this earlier today on Twitter. You remember the comments from Will Muschamp after the game. He talked about, he said 3 of our players this year have been basically injured as a part of illegal cut blocks. And he said basically one of those was Danny Fennell in the game against Clemson. He said that the play down on the goal line, which I believe was the touchdown by Christian Wilkins, on the 4th and goal, toss sweep that got him somersaulted into the end zone. There was a block from Dexter Lawrence, which I think initially was called, at least, or characterized by Muschamp as an illegal cut block. And I even said, as like, if you tried to address that with the league, and he said, they don't listen to me, go ahead. So apparently he has walked that back, according to an exclusive conversation with Gene Sapikoff of the Post and Courier. He said that the injury to Danny Fennell, which is a torn ACL, came on a quote-unquote clean block. So at least Muschamp walks that potential thing back after looking at the video from this weekend.
Interesting, yeah, because that wasn't said. No, that was said right after the game, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, heat of the moment, emotions are high. You're going to say things, and you go look at the video, and you realize, oops, I made a mistake.
He was hot after that game.
He was.
I was probably a lot hotter than I would have been had I had.
Again, there's no game where your emotions run higher than after your rival game, especially when you're outside your locker room. Now, no Clemson fans were around him or causing any issues, but it was just it was just moments after the game. He wasn't 10 minutes after the game, I don't think, before he was talking to the media. And he's a frustrated coach. He was emotional about it, passionate about it, and you say some things.
It says about as quickly as we'd gotten him after one of those road contests.
I think he was frustrated because he felt like he had dealt a bad hand in a poker game because, most of his defense was either not on the trip or on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the winner of that game, the Clemson Tigers, looking ahead to their game against Pittsburgh in the ACC championship game. Of course, South Carolina's offense rolled up 600 total yards against them last weekend, 510 through the air. I asked head coach Dabo Swinney on Tuesday, how do you fix it?
Well, I don't know that it was needed, but, it happened. So, you got 2 choices. You can take cough syrup and get better from it, or, and own it. And move on and get better, or you can sit around and make excuses. But that's not who we are. I mean, they had a rough night the other night, but they've had a lot of great nights. And even as bad as we played the other night defensively, they had 2 goal line stands. So when they had to make some plays, they made some plays. And I'm talking about goal line stands, like on the 2, right there, and 4 downs. So, it's not all bad. We did do a few good things, but that's obviously the worst game we've played defensively in quite a while. But you don't want to disrespect the opponent. I mean, give them some credit. They did a heck of a job, made some plays, and played really well. Had some big chunks, and that's if you're gonna beat Clemson, you're gonna have to have chunks, or have a chance. If you're gonna score on our defense, you're gonna have to have chunks. You're not gonna move the ball down the field. That's just you got to have big plays and give them credit because they got big plays, and then on the flip side of that, what do we need to do better? What did we not do well? And you go apply that. So, but at the end of the day, our worst defensive game of the year, and won by 21 points. So it's a team game. There's been a lot of games where offensively we couldn't hardly make first down, and the defense gets stop. And, without that, you don't win those games. So it's a team game. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about winning.
Talk about the things that you didn't do well, that you needed to do better. What more have you seen that you need to do better on with the defense as far as that goes?
Just get back doing what we normally do. Week in and week out. It's one of the best defenses in the country, and just have our eyes on the right things, play good fundamentals, line up properly, communicate properly, do a better job coaching, There's a lot of things that we can do better from that one game. But the biggest thing is just be who we are and do what we've done all year long, and learn from the mistakes that we made. We do that, we'll be fine.
I'd love to ask Dabo if he'd answer it. I don't know if he'd answer it truthfully, how he would go about game planning against his defense, and conversely, how Venables would game plan against that offense.
Well, two things, 39 chunk plays between the two teams on Saturday. Now, chunk plays, as you might recall, those are plays in the passing game of 15 yards or more, and in the running game, 10 yards or more. 39 big plays all over the field. Second thought is, if you're Pitt and then you're Notre Dame or whoever's next, you look at that USC game film, you see how to attack Clemson's defense. Do you go out and put those pod formations out there and take your offensive linemen and split them out and make Clemson spread their defense out like that, and then put their defensive backs in those situations? Certainly Clemson's secondary is going to play better moving forward from the lessons they learned last weekend.
Well, the other part of this, it won't be the case this week, but it will be the case for whoever plays them in the Orange Bowl. You'll have more time to prepare. So you have time to junk everything that you have on film and come with something completely different. And that was part of the reasoning why South Carolina was able to confuse Clemson so much, is that they put things on the field that Clemson didn't see on film. It messed up their assignments. They didn't know what to do.
All right, let's give you the recruiting report tonight as we approach the top of the hour. Busy second hour coming up. M&M boys. We'll hear more from Will Muschamp on the Gamecocks getting ready for what's ahead for them. Wofford football coach Josh Conklin and Furman basketball coach Bob Ritchie all coming your way here tonight on Sports Talk. In recruiting, receiver Xavier Leggett of Mullins said he had a good visit with Will Muschamp today of USC. Came in this morning, took in practice, toured the campus, met with Muschamp in his office for a few minutes. He came in thinking he might commit, did not. Says he's not quite ready, though the Gamecocks do want him. Now, what they've told him is they want to sign him, and they want him to enroll in August so that his number will count against the 2020 class, because their numbers are so tight for 2019. It's not a case where they're playing with him and they don't want him. They do want him, but they want to work it out that way. So he wouldn't enroll until the point in the summer or August when his number would not count until the 2020 class. However, he wants to take visits, officials, to USC, Tulane, and East Carolina in January, and he's going to do that. Plus, he's got Tennessee involved with him as well. He might visit Tennessee too, and Coastal Carolina has offered him as well. And he's been to USC and Tennessee unofficially 4 games this season. According to Cordova High School coach Marcus Wimberly in Memphis, offensive lineman Matthew Bradford will take officials to USC Friday and Saturday, and then on Sunday fly to Mississippi State. And he'll visit Indiana next weekend. He's been committed to Indiana, but that's not a firm commitment. Decision will come from those 3. Bradford is a tackle. He's about 280 pounds, a good player, according to his coach. Cornerback Chris Steele of Bellflower, California, told Rivals he'll have an in-home visit with USC Monday. The Gamecocks are on a short list with Southern Cal, UCLA, Oklahoma, Florida, and Oregon. Cornerback DeQuintius Watts of Atlanta is set to take officials to USC, Ole Miss, and UCF in January. Said USC is coming for an in-home visit next week. 2020 defensive back Anthony Jackson of Rock Hill was offered by Virginia. USC women missed on 6'1" Haley Jones out of California. She signed with Stanford, #1 prospect in the class. USC target cornerback Jadon Hill had an in-home with Florida last night. He is a Gator commitment. He has taken officials to USC in Florida. Clemson target offensive lineman Will Putnam had an in-home with Florida State last night. Auburn was in today. USC offered as a preferred walk-on long snapper Luke Rizzo of the Woodlands, Texas. Dutch Fork tight end Jordan Springs has offers from Catawba, North Greenville, Culver Stockton in Missouri, Concord in West Virginia, and Limestone. And 2020 receiver Jalen Coit of Sherrall was offered by Wake Forest.
Culver Stockton is NAIA, I believe.
Very nice. In Missouri.
Yes.
Probably under snow as we speak. That's recruiting, top of the hour. We'll be back.
music compilation.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Wednesday night. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Let's get right to the M&M boys. Don't want to take up any of their important airtime. We welcome in the pastor of Payne, former Gamecock star, NFL standout, Corey Miller, currently, of course, the #1 television sports anchor in all of Metro Columbia. At least he says so. And I think the ratings back that up. My goodness. I mean, if your competition is Rick Henry and Reggie Anderson, I mean, my God.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
Wow, that's a Hall of Famer you're talking about there with Rick.
True that.
Hey, you know, I'm just, as the old church folks say, I'm just happy to be in the number that you recognize.
There you go. And Will Merritt, former Wren High School standout offensive lineman, a performer in the Touchstone Energy All-Star Game, known as the North-South Game back in his day. Last player taken in the Clemson recruiting class of 1997, whatever it was. What year did you say?
Oh, wow. Wow. What a resume builder.
Well, you were last. You told me back then it was Presbyterian, Gardner-Webb, and maybe Clemson, if I remember right.
That's correct. And I appreciate you bringing that up.
But what I'm getting at is you went on to become
I had a chance to go to Furman.
Yeah, okay. But you had a stellar career at Clemson. You were a very good offensive lineman, not taking anything away from you, and an outstanding
thank you very much.
Outstanding broadcaster. All right, so Will, we're going to start with you since you're on the winning side. How good do you feel about your win on Saturday?
Well, I mean, you always feel good about a win. I mean, a win is a win, you know, and you won by, 3 touchdowns, and it could have been worse. But at the same time, I mean, you win the ball game, and you move on. And I mean, what more do you have to say?
How much worse could it have been?
Well, I think that had our defense decided to come out of the locker room, it could have been worse. But I mean, we were just abysmal on defense. I mean, that's the worst we've ever played, and it didn't look good. But at the same time, I'm kind of like Dabo a little bit. Like, really, how much can you gripe about a win? I mean. You win by 3 touchdowns. Really, what is there to gripe about?
Well, now, Corey, maybe it was the Gamecock offense that made Clemson's defense look bad.
It was a Gamecock offense, and that's the problem that I had with Dabo Swinney not wanting to give South Carolina any credit. But thank to Brent Venables. No,
stop right there. He's given South Carolina all the credit in the world. He said that multiple times. He said that multiple times this week. He said, don't discount the opponent.
Well, Corey was quiet while you talked. Now give Corey his time.
No, Corey was quiet last week when he wasn't on the phone.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Corey.
That's called. I was working for all these tens of thousands to see my beautiful face on TV. But anyway. Jake Bentley played phenomenal. 510 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, 600 yards against, some people said the best defensive front in all of college football. They only gave up 3 sacks. One of those toward the end of the game, Jake was holding the ball. The offensive line really, I think, dominated Clemson's defensive front. And I've been talking about the play of South Carolina's offensive line. Been very good, very stellar all season.
What happened when you got on the goal line? What happened when you got on the goal line? You couldn't score.
Show why he's one of the best players in the country at wide receiver, and they drove down there twice. Okay, they couldn't punch it in, but they moved the ball. I mean, so South Carolina's offense was the problem. We wanted to say, they didn't get the locker room. They came out the locker room. They're fired up. They're ready to go. South Carolina just outplayed their team.
Hey, Phil, let me tell you this. If we're in the business of giving out more victories, I'm happy to do so.
Will, hang on. Let Corey finish, and you can talk.
The defense of South Carolina was depleted. At 1.6 true freshmen on the field at one time, and Clemson took advantage of that. South Carolina, and I've been saying this, they're not that far apart from Clemson. They're a few players away, depth-wise.
Oh, dear God.
Well, Muschamp is going to get there, and I'm telling you right
dear
now.
God.
We've seen a snapshot of what I've been saying, Phil Kornblum.
Yeah.
What are you smoking?
The team is overrated. It's overrated.
Well, actually, Will, seriously, Will, in the Clemson student section on Saturday night, somebody was smoking pot because it was blowing back up in my face.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And it obviously drifted right back to Corey.
Listen, Corey, thank you again for your gesture Wednesday night when I saw you in person. But I will say
Did
this.
he know who you were?
Yes, he knew who I was.
Okay.
Hey, I spent time with Will. I wouldn't met his family, his mom and dad.
Fantastic. Here's the thing. And he gets mad because I don't say enough positive things about South Carolina. I will say this. The 2019 South Carolina Gamecocks, if they do not come out and have the kind of injury attrition they had this year, they will prove that they belong on the same field as the Clemson Tigers. Agree or disagree, Corey?
I totally agree. And they got these young players that are going to grow up. I'm telling you, this Will is headed, in the right direction with this program. Now, nobody wants a more. They could give Clemson credit. Well, take a note out of my page. Clemson won the game. Let me say this, Phil, because I need to get this out the way.
Yeah.
Dabo was classless. Dabo Swinney was classless that last touchdown. I mean, you playing against a depleted defense. You got the game won. No timeouts. And he's telling Trevor Lawrence, starting quarterback, who's still in the game. They're up by 14. South Carolina's not going to come back in this ball game. But he's worried about perception. That's why he's firing off at his own fan base, because they're complaining. It was a classless move to try to score a late touchdown. And how many times, just as Will alluded to, they all now rehearsing, we won by 21. 14 sounds a little bit too close to a team that don't supposed to stay on the field with you. If you think this is all not, Dabo put on.
Hey, guys! I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. That's the world's smallest violin playing right now. That's the world's smallest violin playing that Corey's playing right now.
Hey, first of all, there ain't nothing on Corey that's small. Okay, he doesn't have a small violin. Right? It'd be a
Give me a freaking break. Stop. Hey, if you don't want us to score, stop us.
Oh, here we go. Classless.
Well, I have to say.
Then he flipped the script on your own fan base and said, y'all, this is not good enough. King Dabo, St. Dabo will leave. I'll go somewhere else.
Then stop us. Hey, guess what? We don't make bumper stickers with freaking number 5 fingers out there about 5 in a row. We just win. And y'all are begging for a win. Guess what? If you don't like it, stop us.
Now, Corey, listen, man, you're a defensive guy. I mean, you're a great player. That you play for the NFL.
And you can't stop us.
Yeah, you got to stop it. That's on y'all. Look, Dabo wanted to score. He told his guys, you could see it, and they threw the ball on the last drive. They could have. Now, I thought it was kind of not very smart because you're risking injury in a game that you've got wrapped up, because all you got to do is take a knee. Carolina had no timeouts. You could have run out the clock.
Right.
Somebody could have gotten hurt big time, because no guarantee that somebody from South Carolina wouldn't get to the quarterback. But yeah,
stop us.
That's all. I'm agreeing with you, Will. Don't blow up the phone. I'm agreeing that it's up to South Carolina to stop them.
Nick Saban would never do that. I just tell you that.
Oh, bull crap! You're full of crap. You are so full of crap.
I'm not full of crap. You just go back and watch the history. I mean, this is a great.
I tell you what, Corey. When you can stop us, then you tell me I'm full of crap.
Yeah, it's full of crap that you got a game where he's worried about possession. He keeps repeating, we won by 21.
Whatever, Corey. Whatever. Hey, you're so full of crap, it's unbelievable.
They might stop you next year. It might be next year, Will, in Columbia.
It won't be next year. There's no end in sight. There's no end in sight.
All right, hang on. Pro's got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Will, because a lot of times when you have a team, they need a wake-up call. And when I started looking at the game, and I kept looking at the game, I said, maybe Dabo in the back of his head, he doesn't like what he sees, but he knows his young secondary. Now, they needed a wake-up call going into the postseason. And of course, Brent Venables had to have something to scream about. So maybe they didn't get what they want, Will, but they got what they needed.
We will address that on the other side. More from the M&M boys, Corey Miller, Will Merritt. Still to come in the program.
Got to give Will Merritt's voice a chance to rest a little bit.
We still have coming up in the program Wofford head coach Josh Conklin getting ready for a playoff game.
If the phone line still works by the time Will gets done with it.
Against Kennesaw State. And our guy, permanent basketball head coach Bob Ritchie. That all comes your way as Sports Talk continues. South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
It is Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. More from the M&M boys. Corey Miller on the Gamecock side, and of course, Will Merritt on the Clemson side. I do want to point out to our Twitter follower, BC Burton, who puts out us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. It didn't take long for the Gamecock to switch the subject to Alabama. I will point out that he does have a very good reason to switch the subject to Alabama, does the Pastor of Pain, because he has son of his who is on the Alabama program and, of course, very much supports that, and we support him in those exploits. But, Pro, I'll allow you to re-ask your question to Mr. Merritt.
I was just asking, Will, sometimes a team or a portion of your team needs to be shaken into reality before they get into the big games. Do you think that was good for Clemson's secondary going forward?
Well, I think it was great for him going forward. I mean, I think that, first of all, South Carolina just exploited the fact that Clemson is weak in the secondary. And, they just shine the light right on that. So I think anytime you get the light shined on your weakness, it gives you an opportunity to be able to go back to the drawing board and go, all right, so where do we get better? And I think that's a great thing going into the playoffs.
So let me ask you both this, since you have rooting interest in the potential playoffs now, Alabama and Clemson. And we'll begin with you, Corey, and then to you, Will. So everybody seems to think if Georgia beats Alabama, Alabama's still going to be in the playoff. Why shouldn't Clemson get the same benefit of the doubt? I know the ACC, this, that, and the other, but Clemson is sort of a league above, and if they were in the SEC, they'd probably be undefeated as well, unless they played Alabama. Huh? You don't think Clemson would run the table in the SEC?
Would not be. They would not be. They're not in the same category as Alabama. I'm so sick of ESPN, everybody trying to play this whole narrative. They're not. I mean, they're down below Alabama. Are they a great football team? I guess. But they're not Alabama. And the reason why people are saying that, the SEC has a lot of good football teams in it. We saw that with South Carolina going up to the second best team in the country in their backyard and taking that defense, and that why Clemson gets all the credit is their defense. Well, we just saw.
So Clemson plays their worst game of the year.
Hang on,
They play their worst game of the year, and they still beat you by 3 touchdowns.
Here are the facts.
Let Corey talk.
The middle of the road. The facts. A middle of the road SEC team. They 4-4 in conference. Went up to the team and the defense and everybody. They do cartwheels and put the pom poms up about that. They're unstoppable. You can't score points. Well, a middle of the road SEC team went in their backyard and put up 600 yards and really should have scored a half 100. They were there in place to score 50 points on this defense. Okay, so don't tell me that they will be undefeated. The ACC is trash. It's absolutely garbage. I've been saying this the whole season. They play.
So what is South Carolina?
If South Carolina was in the ACC, they would be the coastal champions. That's how.
Oh my dear God! Oh my dear God!
That's how bad it's. That's why people are saying.
Now, Will, by the way, Will, keep in mind that Corey is closer to God than you are, since he is a pastor. So just keep that in mind.
Do you know how much I loved last week with Rick? This is why I love Rick so much, because they don't say stupid crap like this.
No,
are you kidding me?
Butt slap you. But here's the thing. I come in your face and I'm telling you the truth with facts.
Yeah.
And
you walked into our stadium. We played our worst football game of the year and still walked out of there by losing by 3 touchdowns.
Invincible defense that South Carolina hung 600 yards on.
Let me ask Will this question. Let me ask Will this question then. If Clemson somehow, some way loses to Pittsburgh, okay, let's just say it's a field goal last play of the game.
They're not going to.
Okay, but just play along. Okay, can you play along?
All right. I'll humor me.
They lose, field goal, they get beat. All right. Should they still be in the playoffs like Alabama will be if they lose to Georgia?
No, they will not.
No. Should they?
No, they should.
Okay. That's just what I want to get to. You agree? You agree they should not.
They should not. I mean, no, they should not. But here's the thing. You can't tell me that a team that goes 13-0 and destroys people, and even your arch rival you play your worst game of the year and win by 3 touchdowns.
Are you talking about UCF? Wait, Will, are you talking about UCF or are you talking about Clemson?
I'm talking about Clemson.
Because you can say the same thing about UCF.
But come on, guys.
I'm just saying.
Come on now.
All right, listen, we got to go, but we can all agree on this, right? Corey, Will, let's be the last thing. And Will, we'll let you start. The Gamecocks are catching up to the Tigers now based on what we saw Saturday. They're closing ground.
It'll be 9 or 10 games before they win.
Based on what?
9 or 10 more games before the Gamecocks win?
It'll be 9 or 10 games before they win one.
Corey, what do you think?
You getting extra eligibility from Trevor?
You can laugh all you want to, buddy. But listen, 4 years from now, when it's 9-0, you can still be chuckling. I don't care how big and bad you think you are. You're still going to be 9-0.
Wait a minute. You think they're going to get one for the other thumb?
Hey, listen here. You know what, man? I got to go watch some basketball here somewhere. But that right there, I knew friends back in the day, they used to smoke that wacky stuff, and they'd be putting it in fruit like an apple.
Yeah, we just don't make bumper stickers about our wins.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm over. I think I'm suffering from inhaling that pot smoke, that secondhand pot smoke the other night.
Will's probably up there with them in the student section up there, because that comment is ridiculous. But anyway, to answer your question, Phil.
Oh, you think you're going to win one between now and the next 4 years?
They're going to win next year. They're going to win next year. By the way.
Oh, you're so full of crap. It's unbelievable.
They both even, right, Phil? The last 10 years.
5-5. Yeah, they are 5. All right. Last thing. So what happens first? We'll start with you, Corey. It's 70, 42, and 6, I believe, the series. 70, 42, and 6. So what happens first? Gamecocks get to 50 or Tigers get to 80?
Yeah, Corey dies before it's even.
How many of those wins?
4.
Before integration. I mean, before the brothers could even come to school at South Carolina. I don't even count that. So,
well, y'all had brothers.
I'm talking about the here and now, baby. I'm talking about the here and now. But you will not win one in the next 4 years.
I think the Gamecocks had brothers before the Tigers did. Did they not?
Yeah, well, we don't want to have that conversation. But anyway, the thing is, the thing is, hey, Phil, we're going to get the 51st.
Okay.
All them wins when Will, Granddad, and them was playing.
Well, Frank Howard and those guys, they had it going back in the day.
Don't you bring up my granddaddy. You going down a lonely road.
All right.
Where your grandpapa and them played.
We are going
to.
We're going to let you go. We will talk to you next week if that's okay. Once we get everything settled for the playoff. That's good?
After Pittsburgh beat Clemson?
If they do.
Real quick.
Oh, give me a break.
Real quick, Corey.
Go grab that left-handed cigarette.
Corey, real quick.
Left-handed cigarette.
Bowl projection. Give me your bowl projection for South Carolina. Where do you think they're going?
It makes sense to go to the Belt Bowl and play, that trash ACC team, get another win.
Virginia,
that would
maybe.
Be what I believe. Yeah, that might be 6 out of 7 bowl wins for South Carolina. They get that done. But I'm hoping
we're going to the game that matters.
Hey, Will, the Gamecocks are building quite a bowl tradition now.
That's great. That's great, Phil. Yeah, make yourself feel good.
Just saying.
Hey,
you got to hang your hat on something.
In the Buffalo Bills of college football.
Oh,
go ahead, brother. It's Buffalo.
Buffalo didn't win one though.
That's right.
Up on the tailpipe.
Clemson won one. Curry. Buffalo never won a Super Bowl.
At least we're relevant. Where are y'all?
Yeah. We're relevant too. Very relevant.
Guys.
Yeah, you're not even relevant in the state.
You sound like my kids. Thank you so much. You guys are great. You guys are great.
To the guy who I was being facetious with the UCF Clemson situation. Guy on Periscope trying to say that I'm ignorant. I was being facetious because apparently I'm also now the Clemson homer on the station.
Oh, I didn't catch the reference to UCF. Sometimes I said it goes over my head.
He was talking about a school that was 13-0 and possibly dominating all of its opponents. And I said, "You mean UCF?"
Oh, I got you. I got you.
Yeah. That's what I was.
And then what you have to do when you extrapolate from that is when you say UCF, then they'll say, "Well, look what the conference is in. Hold it. You don't want to get in that conference argument."
Yeah.
All right. When we come back,
the ACC doesn't really have a big leg to stand on there.
Football coach Josh Conklin will bring some sanity back to Sports Talk. They're getting ready for the Owls of Kennesaw State, round 2 of the playoffs. Back in a moment.
basketball.
We are back on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. In addition to the football playoff going on next weekend, at least the announcement of the football playoff, we are now deep in the woods of the FCS football playoffs and still one state team in the mix. That is the Wofford Terriers after their victory over Elon last week. They now prepare for Kennesaw State. We have their head coach on the line, Corn.
Indeed, Coach Josh Conklin joining us here on Sports Talk. Good evening, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're great. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the win last week. Now you hit the road for Kennesaw. Just looking over some notes on Kennesaw, could not believe that's a school of 35,000 students. And you're stepping up to face those guys. Of course, they're a new program. They're in the Big South, basically a notch below the SoCon, but they don't play like that. They play pretty big-time football.
Yeah, no, they do. I mean, there were some common opponents, this year that I think they did a really tremendous job against, really athletic across the board. They would fit in really well with a lot of Southern Conference teams, that's for sure.
Will this game be over in 2 hours because of all the running between the two of you guys?
Yeah, I think that's the over-under, maybe an hour and 45 minutes even. You may have 6 or 7 possessions. I don't know.
But both of you play really good defense against the run.
We do. Yeah, we do. I mean, it's really two teams that are pretty evenly matched across the board when you kind of go down and you look at just the statistics, rushing defense, rushing offense. Two teams that really understand who they are, have a strong identity. Should be a really good football game.
What are their basic formations on offense and defense?
They're basically they kind of, I guess, not now, but they were more of a Georgia Tech probably style of offense, the true wing bone, if you will. Some of the stuff that we ran early on when Coach Ayers probably first got here, and then we kind of evolved to more of the gun. I think they base out of a 4-2-5 look, but we're expecting to see a little bit more of a 3-down, strong and weak reduction, 50 front. Similar to a way a lot of people have decided to defend us here of late.
When you look at a couple of teams that really put a premium on ball control, Coach, do you have to be more cognizant of keeping your lines of scrimmage fresh, the big uglies, by doing more substitution or more strategic substitution?
Yeah, I do. I think that really potentially plays into the defensive side, maybe more so than the offensive side. We're anticipating and expecting a really physical football game at the point of attack. And I think it's really important with your defensive line. You're going to have some 9, 10, 12 play drives potentially. You better keep those guys healthy because as the game goes on and keep them fresh, you're going to need them, as optimal as you can possibly get. And I think that's a huge piece of it. And we'll try to do the same on our offensive side as well, the offensive line. For whatever reason, it always seems like it's a little bit easier on that side just in terms of keeping guys fresh. But I think those defensive line guys can get worn down, and you got to keep a good eye on them.
Wofford head coach Josh Conklin joining us here on Sports Talk. It's interesting with your varied background, Coach, with the fact that you've spent time in the FBS level as a coordinator and position coach, and obviously here at the FCS level, not only being a position coach, but also now a head coach. How does the preparation vary this time of the year when you have an FBS team that prepares for, a singular bowl game or a college football playoff game, and you can have a little bit of advanced time versus the FCS situation where it's still week after week and you really only have, a couple of days to really install a game plan and get ready for an opponent that you don't necessarily know at least until the week beforehand?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's been a lot of, I always enjoyed it when I was going through it the first time here as a position coach. When you're preparing for a bowl game, it's probably a lot more enjoyable. You're kind of getting your family settled. You're trying to set up, where you're going to be staying, things you're going to be doing. So almost a little bit like a mini vacation for the family. It's kind of a reward for your season to become bowl eligible. And you have 3 or 4 weeks of prep. So you're also putting in some, you're reinstalling some of your offense and defense to your younger guys. And then you kind of focus in the last maybe week and a half on your bowl opponent. This is completely different. I mean, last week we obviously knew that if we speed, Elon, where we were going. So we started to break those guys down, which is really awkward. And then, you know, depending on how this week goes, you start getting the tape on South Dakota State and Duquesne and start putting that into the, you know, into the computer. So if you win, you come back in on Sunday morning and you have a little bit of a chance to, you know, go to the next game. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun because you're playing some unfamiliar opponents and, you know, trying to figure out, you know, how good are they in person compared to what they are on tape, and where your matchups are going to be, you know, advantageous. Makes it really a fun experience.
You know, looking again at this Owls team, and I hope your kickoff man's got a strong leg and can drive it into the end zone deep, because they average 38 yards per kickoff return. So I'm sure you got a game plan for that, and make sure they don't get the ball in a position to return kicks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we had our special teams meeting, and we always start with our punt team, and the kickoff team is right after that. Our special teams coordinator was going through probably 10 or 12 clips, and, you know, we had talked about how good they were as a staff, and then, you know, you start watching those clips, and I told him, I said, I'll tell you what, we better make sure we execute this plan really, really well, because they are definitely dangerous back there with the return guys.
One thing about sports at Wofford today, with your team in the second round of the playoffs, men's basketball coming off a tremendous win at South Carolina, I got to believe over on your campus this week, there's just great enthusiasm and excitement about the things that are going on right now.
No, there really is. I'll tell you what, we just had a tremendous run here in terms of athletic success. You know, it starts with our administration. I think there's a commitment to it. I think it's a you know, kind of a kept secret a little bit, just in terms of the FCS level for football. And then obviously what we're doing right now in men's basketball, you're seeing programs like volleyball and women's basketball. I mean, all those teams are becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's kind of an exciting time to be here. There's no question. It's got a small campus, a small school, and, you know, a lot of the students are athletes, and then we take a lot of pride and being able to compete at the highest levels. So you're exactly right with that.
Of course, Josh Conklin came to Wofford from Pittsburgh, the defensive coordinator there. And, of course, Pittsburgh has a big ACC championship game this week against Clemson. Coach, I just want to know, how much have you kept up with your former stomping ground? And if anything, you know, what insight can you lend us into the group that Clemson will be seeing, at least on defense, when they play up in Charlotte on Saturday?
Well, you know, I know this. I mean, I have followed them a little bit. You know, you want the best. You want the best outcomes for guys that you've coached. I mean, you build relationships with obviously the coaches on staff and the players on staff there, and it was kind of fun to watch them do what they did here in the Coastal Division, and get an opportunity to go play against Clemson again will be tremendous. But, you know, I know this. They've got that Pittsburgh mentality that goes with, you know, Coach Narduzzi and how he operates and how he functions. They're going to be tough. They're going to make you earn everything, and they're going to, you know, you're going to get to their best shot. If that's going to be good enough, we'll know on Saturday night. But you're going to get their best, and they're going to play with a lot of effort.
I do want to say, though, Coach Narduzzi did say on the ACC teleconference, if you haven't heard from him, he did give you your kudos and give his best towards you. So I just wanted to let you know on that.
Yes, I'll tell you what, he's done a great job up there. I think he's just a good fit for the University of Pittsburgh. That city, I think it's a really good fit, and they're obviously going in a really good direction.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Good luck on Saturday. We'll be keeping an eye on you. Hope it goes well, and if things go well, we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Josh Conklin, football coach of the Wofford Terriers, and things are going well up at Wofford. I saw Richard Johnson the other night, the athletics director, after they won the basketball game. I said, you better get the pen out and sign Mike Young to that contract extension, pony up some more bucks.
That's a guy who, again, you said the other night, they are fortunate to have him.
Yeah, and as far as Wofford is concerned, their fans can treat this like a bowl game. Take over Metro Atlanta while you're there.
Well, they only drew 2,700 for their home game, but that's tough. Thanksgiving weekend,
yeah,
students are gone, and you have to charge the students because of the NCAA.
And it's cold.
And it was cold. All right, we'll talk some Furman hoops, the hottest team in the States, when we come back.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Nothing really coming out of the Will Muschamp radio show this week. He did say that J.J. Anabare is expected back, the defensive tackle who missed Saturday's game against Clemson with a head injury. He has been cleared to play. Still in a boot is defensive back J.C. Horn, questionable for the game after an ankle sprain suffered 2 weeks ago.
All right, let's talk hoops. And the hottest team in the state, no question about it, the Furman Paladins, not only catching the eye of the folks here in the state, but really across the country with some impressive wins this season. 7-0 start for Coach Bob Ritchie and the Paladins. Coach joins us. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing great, Phil.
Appreciate you having us on tonight.
Oh, our pleasure. Congratulations on your start. Did you see this coming when you looked at this team in the preseason?
You know, I don't know if you could sit here and say that we knew we were just going to be sitting here 7-0 playing 2 Final Four teams and the defending national champs, but we knew we had a chance to be pretty good. And, you know, but we also knew we were going to be pretty young, and we had to replace basically a whole starting backcourt. You know, 1 through 3 last year were all seniors. But, you know, it's something that's been building for a few years now. And, you know, the culture is right, and it's been growing, and guys have been getting better, and we had a very productive offseason.
Good win on Sunday up at UNC Asheville, 65-51. You have been playing some very good defense as well this year. Is that kind of where you're hanging your hat here early in the year, the defensive effort, knowing that, you know, typically the offense will come?
Yeah, you know, it's 7 of our 9 that are playing right now with Andrew Brown. Andrew Brown's a senior that's been out since the first half of the Loyola game. So 7 of our 9 are underclassmen, but we're longer and we're a little bit more athletic than we were last year. And so we are a little further ahead defensively. We're not quite where we were offensively at this point, but we're able to guard. And you know, what we've been able to show is we're able to guard, you know, at the highest level. And that's been encouraging considering how many guys we have playing that haven't had to play this role before.
You know, it's interesting, Coach. You know, we saw you last year right after the promotion, right before the season, and we talked to you about kind of your first foray as a head coach here. How helpful was it to have the experience as the assistant here to kind of know what was in the pipeline, know what you had to work with, and have built basically, again, what we would consider at least a so far burgeoning success through the first year plus right now with you at the helm?
Very valuable in a lot of different ways. You know, one, from an institutional standpoint, just knowing everybody on campus, knowing all the people in the department, knowing the administration, but also, you know, being able to see us take this from a team that was in the 340s, you know, 5 years ago in the Ken Palm and the RPI index, and to be able to see it grow, you know, a little bit each year, and to see what was part of that recipe and what worked and what was important for us to have success at Furman, and to be able to continue that. And I think that you can't put a price tag on what that experience was allowed me personally, but also our program to keep continuing what we had built so far to that point.
Well, it gets real for you starting this weekend. Southern Conference play. You got one of those early SoCon games against Western Carolina at your place, 4 o'clock. And I know you'd like to see a bunch of Furman fans packing Timmons Arena, but important game there to get off on the right foot in Southern Conference play. And then down the road, I see you got to go to LSU in December, and then you get back into your SoCon play. Speaking of the Southern Conference, you got to be proud as a member, not only of what you're doing, but what Wofford is doing so far, what the Citadel is doing. It looks like the teams from South Carolina are going to have quite a say in how things play out in the league this year.
You know, I wish we got more TV exposures of league, because really this league's been phenomenal the past 3 years. And, you know, with you look at it last year, we had 3 teams in the top 100 of RPI, which is very rare at the mid-level, the low level, whatever you want to call it. It just doesn't happen. And ETSU, ourselves, and Greensboro, we're all in the 90s. And, you know, there's some phenomenal games, and the league games are awesome. And, you know, I know a lot of times people, you know, in the state, they want to go to a South Carolina Clemson game, and rightfully so. But it's a very competitive brand of basketball. And, you know, yeah, our league's had a lot of success early, and really not a huge surprise, because we've got very good players, we've got very good coaches, and you know, it helps for us to be able to continue to have this success.
Well, Coach, you talk about TV exposure. I did see your game against Villanova on Fox Sports 1, so I saw that game. What shocked me was, for a school like Furman, and everybody talks about size and lack of size of teams recruiting at schools like Furman, you have surprising size at the guard position. I mean, you got 2 6'5" guys, and I just saw them scrambling on defense, and that really flustered Villanova.
You know, we do. And one of the things that we've talked about as we built this is we want to have a culture that is willing to work while it waits. And with our players, we have a lot of players that have been working really hard behind the scenes that haven't been getting a lot of minutes in the past few years, and some of them have redshirted. And you take a guy like Noah Gurley that's 6'8", you take a guy like Clay Mounts that's playing the small forward position right now at 6'7", another guy, Trey Clark, that redshirted that's 6'5", is a sophomore now. And those guys have just really, really worked, and they've bought into how we do it. They've bought into our culture. And so what's happened is they're ready, and they're ready to have success. And, it's helped us a lot. Rebounding the ball has not been an issue. Being able to cover space defensively and to be able to finish possessions, it's been good. And I think as we get Andrew Brown back, which we all know, anybody that's followed the program, he's one of the best, if not the best shooter, one of the best shooters in the league. We got a few of them in Alonzo and Fletcher and all those guys, but we get another quality shooter out there on the perimeter. And I think we're going to continue to make strides offensively as well to, keep pushing this team more towards completeness.
Also, I'll say this, Coach, you looked a little hyped there in the pavilion there. Act like you've been there before. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's one of those moments where you just kind of, you're sitting there and you're watching the clock kind of wind down, and we were fortunate enough in overtime. We got up 8 in overtime, and just one of those kind of surreal moments.
Yeah.
And, to be able to be, at Villanova, it's won 2 of the last 3 national championships, and what Coach Wright's been able to do there has been phenomenal. And for our guys to be able to, have that type of resolve and that type of environment was fun to be a part of.
I'm saying that in jest. That was really, really cool to see.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations again on the start. Good luck this weekend. Catch you again later in the season. Look forward to seeing you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Bob.
Good night.
Bob Ritchie, coach at Furman. He's such a good coach.
Oh, yeah.
And when he was an assistant coach, kept hearing about this guy, Bob Ritchie's, tremendous recruiter and tremendous coach. And when he becomes a head coach one day, he's going to do a heck of a job. And, boy, he's showing it at Furman thus far. But it's exciting to see what he's doing. Charleston Southern's got a good basketball team. They lost at Marquette last night. But I know that Barkley Radaball's got a very competitive team at Charleston Southern this year. Of course, the College of Charleston beat Memphis last week. You know that they were an NCAA tournament team last year. They're going to be right there again this year in the CAA. And, South Carolina and Clemson, of course, Tigers got off to a good start, but they've lost 2 in a row. Need to get their act together. And, South Carolina plays Coastal. Coastal's very competitive, and they play Friday night in Columbia, and Frank Martin better get those guys awake, or they're going to take another embarrassing home loss.
You were saying Richard Johnson's got to get the checkbook out for Josh Conklin and Mike Young and all those guys. Mike Buddy might have to pay some money over to Mr. Ritchie.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just saying.
It's too bad Furman football didn't make the playoffs. I mean, East Tennessee
they
lost.
They got snubbed.
They got beat by Jacksonville State in the opening round. No shame losing to Jacksonville State, but Furman should have been in there too. You can't. I mean, 6 out of 7 to close out the season, and then you had a game that was wiped away because of the weather that could have added to your record.
Share the conference title. You should be in the playoffs.
Well,
especially the Southern Conference. How does one league get 6 in? I'm seriously, the CAA is not. Are they that strong in football?
I'll tell you, like Muschamp, it's the logo.
Huh? You would know better than me. I have no idea.
It's the logo.
Is it the logo?
Muschamp said it's like
the logo.
It just means
but
more.
But Furman, the setting, the campus, you always know what I know like about their campus. There's no reason that this team shouldn't have a tremendous athletic program.
All right, that'll do it. Final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to checking out that comeback shack tomorrow.
Oh, yes. We'll see you down in it's not really Charleston. It's more, as the Citadel people say, it's Ladson. So look forward to being there near Monk's Corner and Somerville and all that. We'll have a great show for you. Come by and see us. We'll see you tomorrow.